I'd been savoring the quiet of my morning coffee on the porch of our family cabin, nestled along the shores of Lake Champlain in Vermont, when the crunch of gravel under purposeful footsteps shattered the peace. It was July 2023, and after a brutal year of burnout from my tech job, I'd moved here with my wife, Lily, to restore my great-uncle's old cabin and find some calm. The lake sparkled under the sunrise, casting a golden glow over the water. But that serenity vanished the moment I saw a HOA woman in a pristine navy blazer, her auburn hair styled like she'd just stepped out of a salon, clutching a clipboard with the kind of authority that screamed trouble. This was Evelyn Marsh, though I didn't know her name yet, and she was about to turn my tranquil retreat into a battleground that would unravel a decades-old conspiracy. "Excuse me," Evelyn called out, skipping any pleasantries as she marched up my driveway like she owned it. "This property is in violation of 16 homeowner association regulations." I nearly spit out my coffee. Violations? I'd been here 6 months, pouring my soul into fixing up this cabin, new shingles, fresh paint, the works, and now I was supposedly breaking rules I'd never heard of? She rattled off a list like she was reading from a court order. Window shades the wrong shade of blue, mailbox an inch too short, unauthorized birdhouse attracting excessive wildlife, and my porch chairs clashing with community aesthetics. I stared, wondering if I'd woken up in a gated suburb instead of a remote lakeside cabin. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the absurdity, "this is private property. I'm not part of any HOA." That's when Evelyn flashed a smile cold enough to freeze the lake in midsummer. "Mr. Carter," she said, my name dripping with rehearsed menace, "everyone on Lake Champlain is automatically part of Lakeview Estates HOA. And I am the HOA." Her words carried a chilling conviction, like she believed she held divine power over my life. I was still processing this when she whipped out a flip phone straight from 2005 and started snapping photos of my birdhouse, my mailbox, even my front door, muttering about non-compliant paint hues and unauthorized decor. It was surreal, like I'd stumbled into a prank show. I told her I'd need to review her claims with my lawyer, me sister, Nora, a property attorney with a knack for dismantling nonsense like this. Evelyn's face twitched when I mentioned legal counsel, like I'd just thrown a wrench into her perfectly scripted plan. She stormed off, promising to return with proper authorities, but I could tell I'd rattled her. That night, a cryptic call at midnight hinted this wasn't just about petty rules. Someone on the line whispered, "You don't know what you're up against, Carter," before hanging up. My gut told me this was bigger than a nosy neighbor. The next morning, I was barely awake, fumbling with the coffee maker, when voices outside sent my pulse racing. Peering through the kitchen window, I saw Evelyn back with a polished woman in a gray suit, wielding a leather portfolio and what looked like high-end surveying gear. They were pacing my yard, pointing at my cabin, and discussing market potential and development opportunities like I'd already sold the place. My heart pounded as I threw on a jacket and stormed outside. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," Evelyn chirped with fake warmth that made my skin crawl. "This is Diane from Elite Lakeside Realty. We're here for the 9 a.m. showing you authorized." Showing? I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. "I never authorized anything," I snapped, pulling out my phone to record. Diane looked confused, flipping through her notes. "According to MS. Marsh, you agreed to list this property for sale." Evelyn's mask slipped, her voice sharpening. "We discussed this yesterday, Mr. Carter. This cabin's maintenance issues make selling the responsible choice." The audacity was staggering. She was gaslighting me into believing I'd agreed to sell my home because of her fake violations. Diane, sensing something off, asked for the signed listing agreement. Evelyn fumbled, claiming the paperwork was being processed, but I'd had enough. "Ladies," I said, still recording, "this property isn't for sale, never was, and never will be. I'm calling the police for trespassing and fraud." Evelyn's face didn't flash with anger, it showed raw panic, like I'd threatened something far bigger than her scam. Diane bolted to her car, clearly wanting no part of this, but Evelyn lingered, staring at my cabin like she was memorizing every detail. "This isn't over, Mr. Carter," she said softly, her words heavy with intent. I called Nora immediately, and she dug into county records. What we found made my hands shake. Someone had been researching my property for months: surveys, environmental studies, Development plans all without my consent. Nora's voice was grim. Evan, this looks like organized fraud. Someone's been planning this for a long time. Desperate to send a message, I drove to the hardware store and bought the heaviest gate lock I could find. Then I put up a sign that would become legendary around Lake Champlain. Property for sale. $75 million, cash only. I thought it'd scare Evelyn off, but her reaction when she saw it was pure terror, not anger. Something about that number struck a nerve. The next day, she returned with his survey team, 3 guys who looked like they'd been hired off a job board, wielding cheap tools from a discount store. One was measuring my neighbor Paul's vegetable garden with a toy-like measuring wheel. Another was using a compass that spun wildly under power lines, and the third was planting neon orange flags on the wrong property. Paul, a burly farmer who'd lived here for decades, stormed out, furious that his tomato patch was being surveyed. When he unleashed his guard dog, the team scattered, flags flying, and Evelyn screeched about interference with official business. It was chaos, but I couldn't help laughing. Then came a bombshell. My neighbor, Mrs. Clara, approached with a folder of documents. Evan, I've been paying Evelyn's fines for months $3,000 for things like my garden gnome and Christmas lights. Her voice trembled with shame. I thought they were real. That lit a fire in me. This wasn't just about me. Evelyn was targeting anyone with lakefront property. We called a community meeting, and 20 neighbors showed up, sharing stories of fake fines, threats, and creepy photos of their homes. Nora dropped the hammer. There is no Lakeview Estates HOA. Evelyn's been running a fake operation, collecting thousands in fraudulent fees. The room went silent as she revealed more. Evelyn had forged resident votes, claiming support for her community plans. Half the addresses she listed were fake, vacant lots, or belonged to deceased owners. This was no petty scam, it was a criminal enterprise. Nora's late-night call a few days later hit like a thunderbolt. Evan, I found something in old state records. Evelyn's father, Harold Marsh, owned Marsh Industries, a chemical company that illegally dumped toxic waste into Lake Champlain in the 80s. Your great-uncle led a lawsuit that sent Harold to prison for 12 years, bankrupted their family, and cost them everything: mansions, cars, status. Evelyn was 15 when it happened. Suddenly, it clicked. This wasn't just fraud. It was a 30-year revenge plot against my family for destroying hers. But there was more. Evelyn wasn't just after money. She wanted our land to bypass environmental protections for a massive resort development. Our cabin sat on a key monitoring station, installed after the lawsuit, that held decades of data critical for any development approval. Victor Lane, a former cop who'd worked for Evelyn, came forward with recordings that made my blood run cold. In them, Evelyn calmly instructed him to plant chemical containers near my well to fake contamination, forcing a sale. I became a cop to protect people, Victor said, guilt-ridden. I couldn't keep helping her hurt families. We organized another meeting, and 80 neighbors showed up, outraged. Nora presented the evidence like a prosecutor: forged documents, fake votes, and plans to frame us for environmental crimes. Victor warned that Evelyn was planning a final enforcement that weekend, something desperate. We turned our quiet lakefront into a fortress: cameras, phone trees, neighbors watching neighbors. The showdown came at a packed community center, with 250 people from across Vermont. Evelyn arrived late, dragging a suitcase and a poster board labeled Community Prosperity Plan, clearly thrown together in a panic. She tried to spin her fraud as a noble development project, but Paul interrupted, calling her out for stealing from vulnerable neighbors. Nora dismantled her lies with evidence, and when Evelyn faked a call to her lawyer, actually a pizza shop's automated menu, the crowd roared with laughter and fury. Her facade crumbled: denial, rage, bargaining, despair. She offered to have her fake fines, then collapsed theatrically, claiming we were ruining her vision. Finally, she screamed, "You'll regret stopping this," just as state investigators walked in, badges flashing. "Evelyn Marsh, you're under arrest for fraud, racketeering, and environmental violations," the lead agent said. As handcuffs clicked, she whispered to me, "You don't know what's really under your land, Carter." Her words sent a chill down my spine. 6 weeks later, Evelyn took a plea deal: 3 years in prison, $75,000 in restitution, and total asset forfeiture. Her scheme collapsed, But the real twist came when an environmental team tested our soil. The land Evelyn fought so hard for was laced with toxic chemicals from her father's dumping worthless for development without millions in cleanup. She'd spent 30 years chasing a poisoned dream, unaware it would bankrupt her investors and land her in deeper legal trouble. Our community rallied, launching cleanups and conservation projects. Paul started an annual barbecue celebrating our victory, and my $75 million sign became a local legend. A year later, I ran into Evelyn at a grocery store, scanning items as a cashier. She looked worn but calmer. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "I'm sorry for what I did. Prison made me see I was chasing my father's sins, not your family's wrongs." She was volunteering with cleanup efforts, using her knowledge of old dump sites to help the lake. I nodded, unsure how to feel. "It's what you do now that matters," I told her. Lily, waiting in the car, saw my expression and squeezed my hand. "Your great-uncle would be proud," she said. "He fought for this lake, but he believed in second chances too." Evelyn's story spread, a cautionary tale of revenge gone wrong. But her final whisper haunts me: "You hats under my land that she risked everything for? Was it just the monitoring data, or something else? Could there be a secret worth more than the land itself? What would you do if someone tried to steal your home with lies? Would you forgive a villain who showed remorse, or hold the grudge forever?" Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more wild tales of justice. Let's keep fighting the good fight.